Catholic professionals. It's good to see all of you guys here. A quick show of hands, who here are members? Most of you. Okay, that's what I expected, but thanks for coming. And I know we have a couple of new members. We'll announce those at our ESS event here in a couple of weeks. So thank you to the new members who have joined, and welcome to your first panel event. So we do these every quarter. We focus on a different virtue usually in the Catholic Church, and we bring in 3 panelists who are involved in the Catholic Church and the professional community, and we focus on that one virtue and then split out into small groups after they kind of go through some of their key points. So we have a little bit of time to learn from each other, and they'll come around to the tables and kind of share in the conversation with us as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Jacque Donovan. She is on our board of directors here for YCP Omaha, and she's going to introduce our 3 panelists tonight. So give her a round of warm welcome.
Okay, well, I'm going to stand in front of the podium because it's taller than I am, and I won't be able to see anybody. So 3 panelists. Mike Koley, he's a native of Omaha, Nebraska. He's the executive director of Focus Inc. USA, an international ministry of the Archdiocese of Omaha, which provides assessment to help engaged couples prepare for marriage and married couples to strengthen their marriage. Mike is so grateful to serve in this ministry, and it has been his answer to many years of prayer. Mike has been married to his high school sweetheart, Molly, for 33 years. They have 6 grown children, 3 grandchildren, and 1 on the way. Mike deeply cherishes his Catholic faith. At one point in Mike's faith, he left the Catholic Church to become an evangelical Christian. But through much prayer, struggles, and research, Mike found his way back into the Catholic faith. He's worked for over 30 years in small business and large corporate settings at Koley Inc., First Data Corporation, and GiftCertificates.com. Mike's business experience includes product business development, operations, finance, and project management. Mike has his bachelor's degree in finance from the University of Nebraska, Omaha. Mary Rossman in the middle. Mary is a lifelong Catholic, born and raised in Omaha. She is totally devoted to her husband of 30 years and her family. Professionally, she spent the bulk of her career on the operations side of technology and project management. At the peak of her career, she was the director for ACI Worldwide Communications. As director, she was responsible for over 100 engineers and 7 managers across multiple continents who wrote software code to move money around the world. Following this position, she was director for a national communications organization and later for a pharmaceutical organization. Currently, Mary is a specialist at Boys Town in their marketing and communications department, where she aids in the fundraising for the cure of the children. Mary has a deep spiritual life. She is strengthened by daily prayer in the sacraments. She is involved in the new evangelization efforts at both the parish and archdiocese level, and assists in leading her parish in a monthly apostolic prayer. She and her husband support multiple local and worldwide charities. And Deacon Laird, he was ordained in October of 2010. He is a program manager, civil engineer for U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Graduated from Archbishop Bryan High School and later from UNO with a bachelor's and a master's of science in civil engineering. Joe and his wife, Renee, are parishioners at St. Robert's Catholic Church in Omaha. He has 2 children, Teresa, who is married to Richard Sheridan, and Joey. They also have 3 grandchildren, Scarlett, Lacey, and Charlie. It is through his journey as a Roman Catholic where everything in his life has meaning, especially relationships, service, and work. It is because of Jesus that everything we have been given is truly a gift from God. So who would like to start?
Paper, rock, scissors. I will.
Okay. How meaningful is work? Oh, I'm sorry. I've given the questions already, and you're supposed to give your talk about your experience. Sorry about that.
So, when I was reading the email, just make sure I do this in the right order. Part of it said a few minutes introduction on my own personal business and spiritual journey. So I'll react for a minute or 2. Okay, and I'll make sure I talk loud enough. I'm following your cue there. So and your name again?
Jacque.
Jacque. I'm going to write that down. So as Jacque mentioned, I grew up Catholic, was raised Catholic in St. Adalbert's, if you know where that is, by Our Lady of Lourdes. Some people know where Our Lady of Lourdes is. Great little community. If you ever watched the movie Sandlot, basically that was my life. Just a fantastic childhood neighborhood. I grew up in a family business, Koley's Incorporated. They're still in town. It hit 100 years this year. So it's a 100-year-old family business that I grew up in, so very kind of business background my whole life as a little kid. We basically, that company my brother runs today manufactures church metalware. Have you heard of Cosgrave's church goods store? So we would supply to them. So we manufacture chalices, anything inside a church that's metal, monstrances, ciboriums, patens, candlesticks, all that stuff. Manufacture that, sell it all over the world, but mostly the United States. Do a lot of gold and silver plating. If you have any jewelry you want replated, we still do that kind of walk-in trade. Real fun little family business. So I grew up in that, so on the business side, and then got my degree in finance, decided to kind of branch out on my own, wanted to leave the family business just so I could go spread my wings. Landed at First Data, no longer exists. If you're familiar with them, they're now Fiserv. They just got bought out, but that was the first and second they tie for one of the biggest employers in Omaha. So I spent close to 30 years in that career, bouncing around in about every place possible, from finance to operations to project management, product development, kind of the whole gamut. Did that for a long time. Did some really cool development there. Basically, we'd manufacture hundreds of millions of credit cards, and even got to go to Germany to re-engineer, kind of like you and I outside, re-engineer the whole operations floor with new equipment from Europe. It was really fun. Did that, and then they finally got a lot of us with the bald spots on the back kind of started disappearing, and they finally got me. It's a pretty tough environment to survive, so I was happy to survive as long as I did because they're a real aggressive company, and it was a huge answer to prayer, and I landed at the Archdiocese literally 2 weeks later. So I was, the whole idea of scared to death of getting laid off, and it was the best thing that ever happened. So I've been there about a year and a half, so I can share more on that later, but it's really fantastic. So that's kind of my corporate side. Lots and lots of prayer. I thought about the diaconate, lots of things through the years, raising kids. My wife's a stay-at-home mom. And like I said, eventually God answered my prayer by letting me use all that business experience now for the church, running a ministry that basically is in about 30 countries. So millions of people have used this ministry through the last 34 years. So really, really fun little ministry called Focus, with 2 C's, not the college one. My spiritual journey, I know I'm about out of time here, just like I said, raised Catholic. I had a really, really powerful conversion my senior year at prep. It's a neat story about a priest who's passed away now. But basically asked me to give my life to Christ. It's a little more detailed than that. I did, and literally my life was like changed overnight. I couldn't figure out what was happening to me, but I started to fall in love with Jesus and the Bible. And as a F-bomb kind of wild senior in high school, I couldn't figure out what was happening to me. And over time, the Holy Spirit started to work in my life. But to the point where I just couldn't see it anywhere in the Catholic faith. And I eventually left and became an evangelical, born-again Bible Christian, if you know what that is. Got rebaptized in front of about 2,000 people at one of their services. And I was done with the Catholic Church. And I could give you 100 reasons why I was fed up with beer-drinking Catholics who know how to cuss and have never read the Bible in their life. And my mission was to pull them out of the Catholic Church so I could get them saved. So I was on a mission to save souls and evangelize. A lot happened in between all that, having kids and all that good stuff. Anyway, long story, but God brought me back to the Catholic faith. Towards the very, very end of that process, I met this guy who I thought I could just beat him he was going to talk about his faith. And I thought, this guy's an nincompoop. His name was Scott Hahn. I was blown away when I sat down and said, okay, I got to rethink a few things here. And that was that started my journey back in. So now that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay, I'm Mary. I'm gonna put my glasses on here. I work for my vocation when I first started off. I wanted to be a full-time mom. That's all I wanted. And married young, and when we had our first child, it turned out that it wasn't in the books that I could be a full-time mom. And so my goal was just to find a part-time job. I don't care what it was, just find a part-time job. And so I did. A company was opening up here called Northstain Communications, and it was brand new, so it needed somebody to answer the phones. And they couldn't even hire me full-time, so they hired me as a part-time receptionist. And literally, they didn't even know I worked for them for 2 months. Somebody had to write a personal check as my first check. So I was a little nervous, to say the least, but I felt like this is where I was supposed to be. I could still take care of my babies. Well, when the second one came along, then of course expenses all started changing, and so I had to go into full-time work, and the branch was beginning to blossom. So I moved into a position as a trainer. We actually installed communications equipment. I'm really going to date myself here. You know these computers that are about this big now? Well, when I started, they were the size of a refrigerator, okay? And the motherboards in those particular units were probably like an album, and you probably don't even know what an album is. But, so anyway, I moved into training, then I moved into writing, learning how to write code, all right, because they needed somebody now to code. And then from there, they started needing people to repair. So I went off to school it was an 8-week school, 6 weeks that were intense, and then 2 weeks that were just kind of an introduction. And it was the hardest thing I ever did because I had to leave my babies. But I did it, and there was only 2 of us in that whole class of men. And when they found out what my background was, I took electronics online. And they told me I was in over my head. Well, that was all it took for me to say, I'm going to put myself into this. And I did, and I came out top of the class. So I was pretty proud of that. And but what changed everything for me was that I realized what I had inside. And unfortunately, it wasn't the best motivator, but I think we all have that inside of us, that it just takes something to click, to realize that you can do it. So that's the first thing that I recognized in this path of mine. And then from there, I went into actually running the operations for that branch. It expanded. And so once from there, without getting into a long story, I moved into ACI Worldwide, which, as Jacque pointed out, it's an organization that manufactures. So I was in service, now I'm moving into manufacturing. So that's a whole new world of learning how to do business, and I'm not kidding you. When you're in service, you're there, you do what the client says, right? Okay, I want this and that and this. Well, when you're a manufacturer, it's like you hold the golden key. And now all of a sudden you can say, well, we aren't going to do that, or we're not going to make that. And it takes a whole change of mindset. And I went from being in service trying to help to literally, I felt like I was running with the sharks, you know. But it really wasn't that way. But in my value system, I wasn't fitting in. So anyway, I worked with them. It was great opportunities, and it was an awakening because I realized that at the top, and I was asked to sit in a couple of top executive meetings when my boss wasn't available. I was finding out they don't always know the answers. And this was a crisis for me because I thought all these executives knew what they were doing. And when I found out that wasn't the case, then all of a sudden I realized, well, you know, they're people too, you know. So they matter, and do they know the rest of us are out here to help them? And so then as I migrated into my other jobs, I began to realize that, and I was telling this to Mike earlier, that when we get into management and into leadership roles, sometimes we're so focused on the management by objectives, the profit side of the business, that we lose sight of the importance of the people. And so I was feeling that deep down inside. I was feeling like I'm not connected to these people, but I am engaged in running their business, but I don't feel good about it. But I did it because it was paying the bills. And so then when some things went upside down there, I moved into some other opportunities. I was a national director for a communications company for voice and data. And then that kind of, without getting into a lot of detail, that kind of went left. And so they asked me to move into project management in in running a pharmaceutical. They had sold a $5 million project, and they needed somebody to install it. And the company was literally folding at that time, so they asked me if I would put in the system, run the project to get it all in. And it was national. And so I said, yeah, so, you know, there's probably 100 people on the team, and we did all of this installation. It took about 2 years. And from there, they went into acquisition mode, which means you freeze all assets, and nobody buys anything, and no projects go on. And so then I went into this mold of, I don't have any work. And we had 2 growing children that were now in parochial schools, and as you know, that's not cheap. And so I was offered a job at Boys Town. And so if you look at my history, it was technology, 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 right? Service, manufacturing, service, profit, profit, profit. Now I have nonprofit, charity, all right? And the pay is okay, but a lot less than where I was. And I knew that if I took that job, I was not going to go back, because that's just not the way the business world works, right? If they see that you go down, why aren't you maintaining? So I knew if I made that change, I was going to have to live with it. And it took me a lot of time, prayer, and a lot of struggle with the Lord. But I did it. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. The best thing. Because now I'm working for the true mission, where people matter, where people work hard for other people, where we recognize that even in the ditches of life, people still matter. And my faith came alive. At the same time this all was happening, I was recognizing that even with the inability to lead as I had been, I could still make the most meaningful work out of what I was given. So I hope I get an opportunity to talk about that a little bit more.
Deacon Joe Laird. Congressman, no comment? Sorry, we're not in position. Anyway, I hope you can hear me. My life is one, if there's anything you remember here today, remember your origin. My life, civil engineer, I had no idea what an engineer was in high school. I didn't have a clue if I was going to graduate. John Belushi in the movie Animal House, he would say, geez, 7 years. And that's how long it took me. 7 years in bachelor, because a semester I had amnesty, which means that whole semester was wiped. My first class in engineering, it says 90% of you people will not be here. 4 or 5, maybe 7 years from now. And I walked. And there's certain things to remember. Remember your origin. One day you might be a CEO, whatever that is, or you might still be in your current position. Remember your origin, because you're looking at who you're pointing to. Remember 3 fingers are pointing at you. Remember your origin. And as part of that, I went to college in engineering, and Dr. Joe Bannock believed in me, which I had no clue that I believed in myself. And through persistence, hard work, and a lot of in the community of saints, being Alberta Laird, my mom, through the intercession of her rosary, which I would ask her to pray for me, certain things, and I had no clue what's going on. No clue. Dr. Joe Bannock was one of those people that helped me believe in myself. And then 4 years after that, I got a master's degree, but did I ever think I was going to get out of college? So I ask you to ask yourself, and I'll get in a little bit more about me, but I ask you to ask yourself, where would you be right now? A, without your faith? Where would you be right now? A, without the gift God gave you in whatever profession you're in? Either it be blue collar or white collar? Where would you be right now? Not to be answered, but to be pondered on through meditation and prayer. Where would you be right now without any of those gifts that came to you because my life was by chance. I didn't like foreign language, so I wouldn't get it when I couldn't memorize. So medical school was out. Foreign language, I kind of did in high school, you know. But I had this thing, this one woman came up to me and said, "You might like math." Okay, I went to high school and I took all the prerequisites, high school prerequisites in college, because I had no clue. No clue. I wasn't even close to getting ready for college. That's been part of the 7 years. And then after I did the high school training, the high school physics, and the high school whatever, tried calculus. I sort of liked it. Got a degree. Went out in the real world for a year, got laid off, and went to the Corps of Engineers. It's the best thing outside of marriage and my children that I ever had, because it gave me the opportunity to spread my wings. So whatever brand you have, mine would be a castle. If you truly believe in that, and I don't mean to believe it in reference to it being your all-consuming thing, but being thankful to be able to provide you. Remember your origin. So my wife is Renee. Been married 35 years. She is a stay-at-home grandmother, and three grandkids, which aren't necessarily at our house. They're in Sioux City, and then my son Joe. And that's a story for another day. And so pray for my son. It's not easy right now. But I became someone here, got my master's, got my PE, professional engineering license. Started liking this, never designed a lick, but I started liking project management, so I got into that for the majority of my career. In 1997, I found that I liked to facilitate, and I just love this. Facilitate over 100 conferences and so on and so forth. But I go back to all of you to say, never lose sight of your beginnings that helped you, and I want you to pay it forward. I want you dearly to pay it forward, because if you're talking about what we're going to talk to you tonight, you're going to do a lot of ordinary things, which Bill Murray in Groundhog's Day, anybody seen that movie? You get up, you go to your bathroom, you get your toothpaste, you put it on a brush. You get up, you go to the bathroom, you put on the toothpaste on your brush. Right? That's life for a while. But that, and you know, I'm jumping a little bit, but that is prayer. Okay? I want to get a feel, and I'm going to get this out early. I want to feel how many. I assume that a lot of you are single, and some of you are married, or will be married, or kind of sort of, right? We talk about prayer in our workplace, and I'm going to jump into that real quick. I brought us something to think about in terms of prayer. You guys will understand. No. Something about prayer. You wake up, you walk into the bathroom, you put on the toothpaste, you brush your teeth. There's another thing you do, and it's all prayer. This is prayer. It's a diaper. Anything you do, all the ordinary things you do is prayer. Okay? And I'll get into that a little bit, and I'm jumping, I'm sorry, but I've been in a wonderful organization that's provided me many opportunities. It's not perfect. Anybody, okay, show of hands, anybody here will win the lottery? Anybody here rich? Self-sufficient? God calls us to work, right? How your attitude is used in that setting. And work is not just 8 to 5. You have 24 hours of those day things, right? So I could go in a lot more, and I probably will a little bit later, but if I leave you with anything, Father Matt Kotowski said to Renee, "Well, I want to pray 24/7. I want to do this." It's what you do as a mother, what you do as a father, what you do as a student, what you do as a worker, what you do, me eventually has to retire, what you do as a single, married, vocation, right? Whatever it is, that's your vocation. And that's the attitude you got to take. Thinking at times days will be like this, where you have to cleaned up the stuff.
Deacon.
The stuff. Shit out of stuff. And just remember that and offer it. Because everything you do, brushing your teeth is a prayer. So. Done.
Okay.
Jacque, before we keep going, whatever you guys can do to talk as loud as you can, because we got this fan going. I tried to shut it off. But
Well, maybe stand up and get closer. I don't know, I talk
Us
better
or
when I
them?
stand up personally, you know, but whatever.
I'm just saying.
What?
If they just talk loudly, as loud as they can.
Give us a sign, will you?
Yeah.
No, seriously, if you can't hear it, give us a sign.
Or if you're bored, go like this.
Or move up to the front too, that always
Yeah.
works, right? That's
Thank you.
Okay, well, let's get right into the questions then. We'll start right back at the front. How is meaningful work apparent in your community, professionally, and in your personal time? That's a hard one. Mark? Mike, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Mike, I'm sorry.
Let's see, I did jot down a few notes. How is meaningful work apparent? I was trying to figure out how that, like you said, it's kind of a tough one. I just jotted down some. So I'll say part of it is, for me, it kind of goes back to what Deacon was saying, is I guess because Jesus is so deep inside of my life, and you know, understanding the lives of like the saints, Saint Therese, you know, then the little mundane things of life, if you do it with great love and you can find meaning in these simple things in life, every now and then these big things happen. You know, you do something exciting, but for the most part, 95% of your life is the diapers and things like that. But I kind of put, with some of the notes I had, is that, you know, with me, it doesn't matter so much what I'm doing. I know there's a lot of aspirations you all have and I've had, and I feel like it's been 30, 40 years. I finally feel like I've been given an opportunity to really do something in my career that I find very fulfilling. But as I look back at all those years in the secular world, you know, I think I could serve God that way profoundly as well. And so it wasn't so much what I was doing. I just thought about St. Joseph and Jesus. You know, the 30 years they lived with Mary in obscurity. And you think about that, God himself walking on earth, you know, with St. Joseph and Mary for 30 years, and no one even probably knew who they were. So I just kind of reflect on that to help me find that meaning and what the mundane things are in life. I just know I've always felt there's a greater purpose. I mean, it's as basic as, and so I'm going to bounce around a little bit on the business world as well as my neighborhood and parish to find that meaning. But I can remember as a 20-something-year-old kid, when I got my first job, hired at First Data, large corporation. I was scared to death because I came from a small family business. And I walked into this corporate thing and I looked above the door and I just imagined this big sign that said Jesus Inc. So for me, my faith was already on fire because I had this profound conversion as a senior in high school. So I'm already working through some of that spiritual journey. And I thought, no matter what I got to do today, even though I'm going to put a lot of people in debt by selling credit cards, and I was battling with all that, and the pressure you have to make money is so strong. I just remember that sign, Jesus Inc., when I'd walk into work. And I remember thinking, what can I do somehow in this place to not only work hard and do well, but evangelize? So my whole thing was, I found that meaning in work because every day to me was a chance to evangelize somehow. It could be just praying for someone. I was looking for every angle I could constantly to say, how can I get that person closer to Christ or help them in their sorrow? So that was kind of my work strategy, I guess. Some of my words, my antenna was always open for what can I do for Jesus right now, today, somewhere. Even though obviously you have to do a lot of hard things at work. I think part of the fact that you realize you're in a battle every single day, never forget that Satan's right there wanting to destroy you. And if you know that and you're thinking about that, it's not as boring because you know there's a lot more going on maybe than just the routineness of the day. I loved how Pope Benedict said we're made for greatness, not comfort. It's things like that. Or you can, I don't know if I'm hitting on the right answers here. In outside of work, to me, I think volunteering is huge. If you haven't gotten volunteered in something, it's so rewarding. You get way more out of it than you ever give to the person. Step out of your comfort zone. Find a way to volunteer somehow at church, be it ever so small. If it starts with donuts, as you said, your whole career started with little steps. to move to bigger opportunities. Same with volunteering. My wife and I are at a point, I think we'd go crazy if we didn't volunteer. And we're really busy. I mean, we got kids and everything's going on, but it's just that idea of getting outside of our little circle to try to help someone. So there's another way I think where meaning is found. Anyway, I think that's enough for now.
Mary?
Okay. When I looked at meaningful work as it's apparent in our community, I just kind of sat back and thought, well, what things do I say?
Don't yell at me.
What things do you experience in the community? And so I looked at our what Dave and I, my husband, and I are involved in the community, and we are involved with St. Vincent de Paul Society, where we take the food to the hungry. We have also worked at EPS, Emergency Pregnancy Services, Bethlehem House. I was a real, I held a torch for them because they're babies, and I just have a huge heart for babies. And so I literally worked with the deaneries in the Archdiocese to make sure that we had a liaison at the parish level that would help us spread the news of what Bethlehem House needed. The St. Francis House, we do a lot of work down there. I shouldn't say a lot of work. We go down there probably 4 times a year and donate what we can to them as far as time and money and clothing. And one thing I will tell you is it's real easy to write a check and send some money in, but when you are in the area and you're engaged with these people, you get an entire different perspective. And sometimes for me, I need to ignite that to make me understand that what is there is real, and that they are people and they need us, and we need them whether we think so or not. And then mentorship programs. I work for Boys Town. So like Boys Towns, if you don't know what Boys Town is and you live in Omaha, you need to see me. It's quite an organization. We served 75,000 children last year. So that's a big number. And we do that every year. So just multiply that. We've been in Father Flanagan started this off over 100 years ago. So just calculate those numbers. It's huge. And so that's at a community level, that's at a professional level, that's what I do today, and that's at a personal level as well. My husband and I are committed to them. And I think it's important that when you work for an organization that you feel their values and their mission, that they match up with what you believe in, because when that happens, you give back and you feel good about giving back, and it's just cyclical, okay? So you start, you give work, the work builds up and it goes out to the community, and it continues to work that way. So I would say that Boys Town on a big level is part of our lives. I think also mentorship programs are extremely important. People don't have what we've been blessed with, parents that care about us and, know how to raise us and teach us right from wrong and help us with, our schoolwork and all that. We take that all for granted. When I went to Boys Town, I found out these kids don't even know how to say hello. When you work for Boys Town, you have to go through a 2-week training program. And they tell you, you need to hold your hand out every time you see them. And if they don't introduce themselves, you introduce yourself to them. And it's just a continuum of reinforcement with these kids that they don't get and they've never had. So when they come to Boys Town, they can be there anywhere from 2 years old to 18. And when they come in between in those age ranges, we have to start like they've never been disciplined or they've never been given opportunity. And that was just a real eye-opener for me. It just filled my heart. So there's a definite need there. And I also think the hotline at Boys Town is critical. It helps kids that are in peril, not only for what I would call underprivileged kids, but kids in households like we are from that are sensing despair and bullying and all this horrible things that are happening out there. And they're wanting somebody to pay attention to them, and they are scared to go to their parents. So the hotline takes all of those calls in, saving thousands of kids, you know. Personally, I'm involved in a mentorship program with the Archdiocese. It's a brand new program. We were the first year group, and there's 50 of us, 25 from the rural areas and 25 from the city. And we are growing in trying to be lay leaders in our parishes and to help facilitate bringing Jesus to reality. I think there are lots of people that are sitting in our pews that really don't know Jesus. And I hate to say that, but it is the truth. And so that's part of our mission, and I'm on fire for that. I'm a mentor here, and that's been just a real joy. I'm looking forward to that. I'm also a leader in apostolic prayer, which is another thing that I don't think we know that we have. Lectio Divina in front of the Blessed Sacrament is incredibly powerful. You are talking to Jesus when you're doing Lectio. You are talking, and He is talking to you. And I'm just so on fire about that I am taking that out to the Archdiocese and hopefully get parishes involved. If you are not involved in Lectio, please come see me. And then other things that are what I would say are just day-to-day things. When I go to work, I start my work day off reading scripture. And I turn on Gregorian chant because it takes me right to Jesus. And I just go peacefully into the day. I have lots of visible things in front of me to remind me that Jesus is with me all day long. I wear my crucifix. I have a little statue of Mary. I have holy cards. And I know it's sad, but I need that. You know, everybody has their way of being reminded that Jesus is in the trenches with us. Well, my way is to have Him physically visible to me. So I do that a lot. And then after my scripture reading in the morning, I'll take a line that really hits me hard, and I'll put it on my telephone, so I'll reference it all day long. So it's just the little things like that that help me realize that when Deacon Joe said, remember your origin, dial way back and think, why am I created? Why did God bring me here? What talents did He give me? In gratitude, how do I repay that? All right? We can never repay that. However, in gratitude, in our weakness, He will give us the strength to take our talents to where we need to take them. And if you believe that you're at your work because it's your decision, you might want to pray about that. Joe?
I have read lately a lot of Matthew Kelly, and a couple things he has said in the book Discovering Happiness. Primary purpose of work and anything else is to try to strive to be the best version of yourself. This is the main tenet in most of his books. This will help us grow in virtue. And work is not just 8 to 5. He also states, as Christians, we are called to transform every activity in our lives into prayer, right? It's harder said than done if it's not with an attitude of prayer. This is how we can try to live each day holy lives. But like exercise, which I can't stand, think of one thing, attitude and gratitude, right? Not just 8 to 5. Not just when you brush your teeth. Not just when parents do this. Not to mention what that is. I drove from here to Menards this last week, not paying attention, and I was like an inch away from, so I slammed on my brakes with my truck, and I almost hit a car. Thank you, God. Right? So, when you talk about work, think of your 24 hours, not just your 8. Do an examine of conscience, right? How did I do this? You have a journal mentally or whatever when you exercise. How many laps I did and so on and so forth. You have an exam and you can do the same thing. Have prayer in your life, right? Have this in your life. Every minute of life is a gift, as was stated. Volunteering, again, helps you to point outward and not inward. The more selfish we can become, the less we see this as God's gift and not our accomplishment. So yeah, remember your origins. When we volunteer, it will help us to put flesh on the encounter through an eyelash-to-eyelash encounter with those we help. I've helped with Operation Others. I've helped with jail ministry and St. Vincent de Paul, and obviously I'm a deacon. But that calling didn't come by pure accident. We have a conversion experience and so on and so forth in senior year in high school. But look at those moments in your life that could be God moments, 24/7. Show of hands. I'm just curious. Anybody here perfect? Everybody here breathing? Raise your hand. Okay. So there's a couple things we have in common. Us up here who've been there, done that a little bit, and you who are trying to. We breathe, and I hope to God we're not selfish. That is prayer. It's not a monastery. It's not a chapel 24/7, right? Your chapel is here right now. You are a community of saints, right? You, when somebody falls, somebody else is going to pick you up, or you likewise pick them up. So prayer, the mundane, all that is there. Attitude, gratitude, you'll be happier about it too. Your health will be better if you have gratitude and so on and so forth. And again, I have to remember my origins. Everything I wouldn't be sitting here but for obviously with what my degree and people who have affected me as you are affecting me now. But remember your origins. Remember this and never lose sight of that and never quit helping that. How many people experienced the first day of their work? Walked in, oh my, what's going to happen? I know nothing. I just graduated or just left high school or into my trade. I don't know what is going to happen, right? Remember that day, because you are going to be that one at your desk and that new individual with that person coming in. Hopefully you're going to help them too, because they're just as scared as you were, as I was. So remember your origins, remember the gift of God, not focusing on the mundane based on work only. Sleep is a prayer. Meditation obviously is prayer. I do the liturgy of the hours and adoration and so on and so forth, right? Those are good, but if they don't internalize somehow spiritual direction and everything else, they don't internalize, what are they but ink on paper? So sacraments is wonderful too, but and I'm not poo-pooing that when I say that the way I said it, but just remember where you came from and those around you. And I thank you all here to be here together tonight to help each other get to heaven. And that's our obvious goal, right? Through God's grace and a little bit of day-to-day mundane stuff. We are, again, like I said when I started, God loves the ordinary things, not what the world tells you about the extraordinary things that flee. The ordinary things of laughter together. I talked earlier about culinary night. A beer here with all of you. Ordinary things made special because of your attitude coming into it. So, next.
Well, I still obviously work not for a non-for-profit, and we actually like to make money. And I think the way that I try to do it every day is I try to, every time I meet somebody, you know, from the guy that's picking up our trash to, you know, somebody that, you know, maybe somebody that's president of one of our larger tenants is, I always try to make them first, excuse me, first, and try to find out something about them and try to make it so when they go away, maybe we've laughed, maybe I've taken not necessarily a burden, but I've tried to make their day better. And, you know, it's not anything religious or whatever, but just try, when they leave, maybe they have a smile on their face. And you can touch a lot of people very quickly doing that without a lot of effort. And it brings a lot of joy to you. You're usually laughing too, because they usually come right back at you with something equally as that you gain from too. So anyway, that's how I try to find spirituality in my day. Anyway, Mike, what things in your life have made it hard for you to feel like the work you do is meaningful?
Hard to find meaning. So, okay, for me, it's when I start having the whole poor me syndrome. I guess that's when finding the meaning. So on the practical side, it's been when I've had times in my career with major overtime, because you just almost feel like a slave at that point, and you're working so hard, your feelings kind of shut down. It's really difficult to maintain that Christian charity, and you start to lick your wounds. It's when you're being pushed really hard at work like that, or if you see someone else, whether they work with you or someone else where they're getting the promotions and they're wealthy and they're on easy street. Those are the times where it's harder to find the meaning and what am I doing. And of course, you know, theologically you understand there's benefit in suffering, but sometimes that's, I guess, when I look at those times in my life where a lot of us is practical as overtime. There's been times where I felt like I was criticized unjustly. You know, I remember a certain particular deal where someone was kind of yelling at me, and I thought I was doing the right thing, but a lot of it just had to write it out, and eventually that person actually was removed from the company. But at the point, I could have been probably fired because, you know, just the circumstances. I thought, well, I didn't do anything wrong, but this person had authority over me, and as time went on, he ended up being let go, and I survived all that. So sometimes it's just enduring the trials where you feel like there's some injustice, and that can happen a lot. And that goes back to, there's some people that are maybe they're just angry in life, for personal reasons, but they bring it into the workplace, and it's really difficult if they're smarter than you and have more experience, so they can get away with it a lot easier. And sometimes the folks in the large corporate settings, you know, they don't care about feelings, they care about the bottom line. So you may have someone who's very angry, doing, you know, very condescending, but smarter than you, more experience, and they're getting promoted because they're making the money. And those are difficult times where it's like, where's the meaning in this, you know? And you feel a little bit abandoned by God. I've had that happen, you know, where you're kind of going through the trial. And for me particularly, I felt like we were sticking our neck out because my wife and I are not very traditional, and the fact that we wanted to have her stay home and raise the kids and have a big family, and a lot of people, no one around us was doing that. So those times where I remember one time I was at a huge kickoff with hundreds of people in a big setting, a big conference hall, and we were talking about things, and I was your age, you know, and I think we just had our third kid, or maybe our fourth is on the way, and he was talking about how he's going to go skiing and all that, and he looked at me, he's like, dude, how do you have a life? And I go, raising kids is my life. And it was just so foreign to him. He was like, yeah, you got to pop out a couple kids, but it's all about, you know, going skiing and having fun and getting your career. And I remember thinking, I am not necessarily fitting in with the average crowd. So sometimes when you live your Christian faith, you're a sign of contradiction. And there's times where that may be some glory, but there's a lot of times where it just can stink, you know, because you're in the battle, and the devil knows you're trying to be a light, and he's coming after you. So, dude, good answer. That's what it was. That's what he said.
I guess there's several levels that you could look at this answer. You know, the world right now is pretty scary. We're facing a lot of stuff. We're facing a church that's struggling. There's continued hunger. There's continued poverty, homelessness. And it's there all the time. I don't remember a time in my life when there wasn't poverty and hunger and homelessness and abandonment and addiction. And so sometimes that can make you get kind of down and depressed because I feel so little with such big problems. But then I have to remember where I came from. And I think about God and what did God do? Why did He make me? And I think it was to be in relationship with Him as well as relationship with others, right? So He wants us to relate to Him, trust Him, rely on Him, and understand that He is in control and we aren't. And so when those times get heavy, and I think, woe is me, I also think about the bigger problems that are there. And maybe my problems, even though they suck, okay, they are not probably as bad as maybe the person sitting next to me or the guy down the hall that maybe just lost his mother, or the person that just found out his aunt has cancer. So it's called getting out of yourself to the bottom line, and to take it to Jesus and to remind yourself of the graces and blessings that you do have, and to turn that wheel from being a pity party, that you're the only one invited, to reaching out to others. I used to do a ministry for those who have lost loved ones. And the way that it worked, it was so beautiful. I would start the ministry off with asking everyone to take a name of another individual that was there. And this happened to be when, do you remember when Von Mauer shooting happened? I had over 25 people in my class, all related to one of those shootings. And it was horrible. But what I did was I asked them to put all their names in a hat and take a name and start praying for that individual as we went through this class. And what it did for those people was it got them out of themselves and started asking, how are you doing today? And relationships started happening. And that's where things turn around. When we begin to relate to one another. When relationships begin to move. And people begin to love and care about each other. And I think that's what the message is for us when you ask this question, Jacque. And that is, it's always going to be there. It's always going to be there. But what do we have inside to turn the tables, to make it look like it's not the end? I remember my orthopedic doctor here, I'll give him a plug. I said to him, so he said to me, so how's it going, Mary? And I said, well, the glass is half full today, I guess, Doc. And he looked at me and he said, Mary, he said, the glass is always full.
Again, we mentioned Groundhog's Day for the brushing of the teeth and so on and so forth. That can be defined as Monday. And all that's Monday. You go to work. You get there, check in, and so on and so forth. So, you talked earlier, and I'm surprised both of you never said this, but I'm going to put words in your mouth. If I'm wrong, tell me. Thank you, I know you always have. So, you talk about the work, and I can't stand it. Whatever gets it is, right? You can't stand me! No, sorry. You can't stand work. Whatever it is. You have to ask yourself, is it funding you? Or is it all? Somebody once said to me, if you don't import, you ain't gonna export. Import, through the sacraments. Import through potentially, if there is a small touchstone, a secular office may or may not have God in it as a statue or whatever, right? Boys Town, different story. Archdiocesan office, different story. Government, sort of, kind of, a little bit. Find a touchstone that represents something that connects you outside of where you're at that moment, right? Something to fund you. We talked about overtime. Protect your NOs. Your yeses, protect your yeses. Don't always say yes all the time. Won't be funded after a while. There'll be 50,000 hours of overtime. Life is too short. You gotta do some overtime. You gotta do all that. But if you think work owes me, right? It's all about me. Where's the prayer in that? So both of you spoke to time to move on. Life is about options. If you give God the opportunity to give you those options, right? And you both moved on from different careers. I moved on internally into Corps of Engineers in different areas. I'm a Myers-Briggs. I'm ENFP, which is extroverted off the chart. But find your options. Have a mentor at work, and I'm speaking work now. Have a mentor that's been there, done that scenario, 5 years ahead of you, 10 years ahead in a career path. But then again, pay it forward, because somebody's going to be 5 or 10 years you're younger one day, or 3 weeks younger one day. So, again, that's at home and at work. Find a touchstone, find somebody else you can bounce off of. And I ask you the question, do you laugh at work? Do you know the other individuals at work? In our society right now, we look at our houses. We used to have all these great front porches, and everybody used to know everybody in the neighborhood, right? Our current houses now have 6-foot fences back, and we're secluded, not knowing the neighbor around us. Well, look at work. That person behind that partition who could have somebody with cancer, who could be the one with cancer, right? Who needs somebody to help them laugh. That is part of your ministry too. Look at it. Everyone you encounter is part of your ministry. God says at the end of Mass, go off and proclaim the gospel of the Lord. My gospel of the Lord could be the gospel of Joe Laird. Because through my example, I'm able to give those people God. Yeah, we're not going to pray and have candles at work and everything else. But it's an attitude, right? God is here, right?
Okay, I think we kind of answered the third question. Do we have any does anybody out here want to have a specific question that on something that hasn't been addressed? Oh, somebody has to have a question. Come on.
Come on, dudes.
Come on, somebody has
Well,
to.
we have a small group discussion too, and we can kind of go over some things that.
Okay, let's.
And we're about at that time.
You bet. So I think each one of you guys are supposed to go join a table, correct? And I'll join one, and we'll go through the small group questions, and then do a 30-second recap of everything